Number 15. Fish or be fished. When you go fishing, you usually go fishing for the big game, but sometimes the big game ends up coming back after you. Gary Cagle was a fan of the water. The freediver and avid fisherman was constantly looking for his next big catch near the Florida Keys, but he didn't always follow the rules. Despite the fact that they are a protected species, Cagle went on the hunt for the Goliath groupers in 2006, and he found what he was looking for. He pierced the fish's skin with his spear gun, only to be startled by its size and immense strength. Cagle was yanked along by the fish as it tried to escape. He became caught in the wire, which led to his second blunder. He forgot to pack his knife. Unable to get free of the line and trapped underwater, Cagle eventually drowned. A day later, his body was discovered, still attached to the dead grouper, who had likely become a legend among other fish for the day because he truly caught the big one. Number 14. Heads up. Bumping your head is one of the most frustrating accidents a person can experience. Even a quick whack to the hardest low-hanging shelf, though, pales in comparison to what one daredevil with a liking for trains and trespassing suffered in North Carolina back in 2018. In an attempt to satisfy his adrenaline junkie desires, he climbed onto a train's roof and tried to ride it as if it were a wild metal stallion. He'd been issued warnings before for similar situations, so he'd probably gotten his head around the balancing act that train top cruising would demand. But his thoughts were, how do we put it, redirected when the train passed beneath a low-hanging bridge. He apparently didn't see the bridge in time and slammed into it at full speed. It turns out that it isn't very good for the human body to hit solid objects at over 90 miles or just under 150 kilometers per hour. His skull was discovered on the side of the track 2 months later, about 138 miles or just over 220 kilometers from where his body was discovered the day of the accident. Authorities came to a disturbing conclusion with this evidence. He'd been literally decapitated the instant he hit the bridge's roof, and his body proceeded on its journey until it fell off the train. The conclusion is simple. Don't be a train cowboy. It's a huge pain in the neck. Number 13. Disney's new Dumbo. Gaston is an extremely arrogant character from Disney's Beauty and the Beast, with an endless supply of misguided self-confidence. So it's entirely possible that the actor who played Gaston at Disney World Orlando was still in character when he caused his own catastrophic end in 2015. It appears so since he had too much faith in his own skull's strength as he launched a rocket from the top of his head. He'd been drinking heavily and had joked about the idea when the firework he put on his head to demonstrate caught spark. Within seconds, the mortar tube exploded in a vivid, blazing explosion that no amount of alcohol could dull. Without a doubt, Disney World needed to find a new Gaston. Hopefully the new one is less of a method actor and more professional. Number 12. Till Death Do Us Part. Passing away while doing the dirty is perhaps one of the finest, or most embarrassing, ways to go. But for an old man who hired an escort in 2016, the true disgrace occurred after the deed. Sadly, the man died from a heart attack in the heat of passion. To his paid companion's horror, though, the combination of the escort's panic and the man's no longer circulating blood flow caused the duo to become, well, stuck together, literally. The victim had no choice but to seek medical attention after being unable to break free from the horrifyingly creepy hug. She was brought past dozens of hospital onlookers after paramedics picked her up, still very much bonded to the man she'd given a happy ending to. We assume the whole "until death do us part" thing only applies to married couples. Number 11. The Deadly Stroll. Drive-through safari parks are terrific opportunities for anyone who loves nature's most dangerous creatures and wants to get up close and personal with them. It is fairly safe as long as one basic guideline is followed. At all times, remain inside your vehicle. But on a hot summer day in 2016, at Beijing's Badaling Safari World, that rule was violated in an act of sheer stupidity. It happened after an altercation between a passenger and the driver of a car who was passing through the tiger enclosure. In a fit of rage, the passenger stormed out of the vehicle. What a stupid move! Within seconds, a tiger lunged and caught her in its jaws. But while this in itself was a mind-numbingly dumb decision, the response of the other passengers in the car proved fatal. One of the passengers figured that she could overcome the tiger herself, and as a result, she jumped out and ran over to the big cat. She was instantly slain by one of nature's most efficient killing machines. Ironically, the person she was attempting to save lived, and if she had just waited a second or two longer for the highly experienced park personnel to take over, she could have as well. It should go without saying, if you battle a tiger unarmed, you will lose. Unless you're Hercules. Have you ever had something crazy happen to you with animals in captivity? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you like the video so far, be sure to subscribe to see more. Number 10. The cure for boredom. When you're prone to making ridiculously bad choices, tempting fate is twice as stupid as it would be for normal people. That didn't stop a Brazilian student from proudly displaying the infinitely wise motto, "Better to die from vodka than boredom," in his Facebook bio. You can probably guess where this is going. In 2015, during a drinking contest, he put that saying to the test by downing 25 shots of vodka in less than 60 seconds. The student said he felt nauseous and fainted shortly after sinking the final drop, and soon after, he died of alcohol poisoning on the way to the hospital. Even over an hour, that many rounds could have been lethal, but in a minute, it's just downright absurd. Anyone who was rooting for this person while he slammed those shots is probably just as stupid as he was. Number 9. Experienced jumper. The next daredevil made a surprising mistake during a spot check. Ivan Lester McGuire was a seasoned skydiver who had moved on to his next assignment, which required him to work with other parachutists in North Carolina. McGuire opted to record the other divers as they dropped to Earth during a collective dive in 1988. He made sure his camera was ready for filming, got into position, and leapt out of the plane once the others had leapt off. He had just forgotten one small detail: his parachute. In the excitement, he forgot to put his on. Instead of capturing the other divers as they approached the ground, he managed to capture the rapidly approaching Earth as he free fell towards a fatal collision, an unexpected finish for a man who had made over 800 jumps. Number 8. Weddings are a blast. It's not our business to judge other cultures' traditions, but a circle of dancing men blasting shotguns into the air doesn't seem like the smartest way to celebrate a wedding, let alone the safest one. Unfortunately, it was the tactic of choice in 2019 for a bunch of Indian wedding goers with a fondness for celebration gunshots. The initial round of gunfire, fired dangerously close to the dancers' heads, nearly deafened some of them. Despite this, the second round was still fired. This time, without any regard for safety or any attempts to try and aim at the sky, one of the bullets struck one of the shotgun-wielding guests straight in the face. The oblivious guest who shot the round proceeded to fire more rounds happily until he saw what he'd done. Needless to say, the festivities ended once he decided to look at the situation around him. Hey guys, how about we start using wedding bells instead of shotgun shells from now on? Number 7. The flamethrower. When a blowtorch gets in the hands of our species' less than brilliant members, it's always wise to take a step, or 10, back. Or better yet, move to the next county over. If this wasn't that obvious. In June 2019, a man from Topeka, Kansas made it very clear when he found what looked like an empty metal drum. A curious man decided that cutting the object open with a blowtorch was his best option. It's unclear what he had hoped to accomplish with this drum in the first place, since it burst violently before he had a chance to complete his mission. Apparently, he ignored the bold warnings that said that the drum contained methanol, which is a highly flammable substance. For people like this, warnings to stay away from naked flames must not have sounded too threatening. Whether he read the labels or not, this guy's hasty blowtorch trigger finger cost him his life. Number 6. Convoy of Death. On a spring night in April 2016, a rather strange group was spotted chugging along a road in Louisiana. One man was driving a sit-down lawnmower while another sat on the bonnet, and the third sat in a wheelchair, of all things, holding on to the back of the lawnmower and being dragged along. The three were said to be having the time of their lives as they cruised on a busy road. That is, until they were hit from behind by an unsuspecting truck. As surprising as it may seem, a dark highway wasn't the best setting for a tag-along DIY joyride. Amazingly, the only person killed in the incident was the man driving the lawnmower, who seems to have started the absurd activity. Hopefully his friends' mowers will stay firmly on the lawn from this day on. Number 5. A highway joyride. Riding in a bicycle lane can be risky enough sometimes, and as we just learned, being on the road at night in anything besides vehicles adds to that risk. But riding a bicycle on the highway at night? Don't even try it. This clear no-no should speak for itself for the vast majority of people. But in September 2019, one man stood out from the crowd when he decided to go on a late-night bike ride along the 405 freeway in Long Beach, California. He was cycling in the auxiliary lane, which is designed to let cars speed up or slow down on the 60-mile-per-hour highway in the dark. Unsurprisingly, a car which was unaware of the presented danger and not expecting to see a cyclist in the dark drove into him at full speed, unable to stop. A collision that should never have happened killed the rider and possibly scarred the driver for the rest of his life. So what did we learn from this? Unless you're a superhuman capable of riding your bicycle at speeds of 60 miles or just under 100 kilometers per hour or higher, leave the highways to the motorists. Number 4, the condom criminal. Before the big bucks come along, every skilled criminal has to start with tiny jobs to gain experience. That being said, robbing a machine full of condoms for its contents and cash isn't exactly the typical sign of a budding criminal genius. In fact, it's the opposite. But on Christmas Day 2015, a bunch of rookie German criminals decided to do just that. They stuffed explosives into a condom dispenser and lit them, but much to their surprise, the explosion shot parts of the metal container outwards with enough speed to make them lethal projectiles. One of the robbers was hit in the head and died soon after. The machine wasn't in much better shape though. I'm sorry to state the obvious, but I believe the condom-crazed criminal would have been okay if he had just worn protection. Number 3, snakes on a couch. Many people associate having a snake in their home with a living nightmare, while for others snakes can be a great pet. But for a woman from Indiana, one snake wasn't enough. Her ideal number was 140 to be exact. As an enthusiast and part-time breeder, you'd think the 36-year-old would be well aware of the dangers of living with reptiles that could kill you. But she lowered her vigilance or simply felt more comfortable letting the beast roam free among her, and one of the snakes turned on her. The village sheriff was horrified the next day to discover the reptile enthusiast being held in a lethal embrace by one of her favorite pets, an 8-foot-long or just about 2.5-meter python. It had strangled her to death just hours before, but it was still wrapped around her neck, indicating that when a python wants a hug, there are no exceptions. Number 2, bedtime is important. We're regularly reminded of the importance of getting a good night's sleep, and for good reason, too. But for one Chinese man in 2014, the consequences extended far beyond being sleepy the next morning. As a huge soccer fan, losing sleep during the World Cup due to the 11-hour time difference between host country Brazil and his own country was no big deal and typical. But the tension, exhaustion, and exhilaration of seeing soccer's greatest players go head-to-head non-stop for the 48 hours he stayed up took their toll on his body. It's believed that his extreme tiredness caused a brain hemorrhage, the chances of which occurring dramatically increased due to sleep deprivation. He died shortly after Costa Rica defeated Uruguay 3-1 in the day's last match. It's unknown whether he was a supporter of the losing team and took the loss especially hard. But if my parents told me I might die from staying up too late as a teenager, I would have definitely gotten more sleep. And you should too. Number 1. Hey, look, no hands. Showing off while cruising at 85 miles per hour or just under 140 kilometers an hour on a motorcycle is without a doubt one of the stupidest things you can do. That didn't stop a Russian motorcycling vlogger, though, who considered himself a daredevil on his Harley-Davidson in June 2019. He shot a vlog while steering with his feet and filming with his hands, bragging about how his ability to not give up made these things possible. The biker soon lost control and his Harley flipped dozens of times, smacking against the tarmac just moments after sharing the insanely dangerous footage to a friend. The vehicle was only slightly less damaged than the rider was, though, but even the most skilled mechanics and doctors couldn't simply put the two back together. Texting and driving is bad enough, but if you follow in this guy's footsteps, all you have to look forward to is the rough, hard asphalt road. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get strangled to death by a snake or mauled by a tiger? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.